Hi, my name is Rennie Harrison, and I'm a senior in the Jepson School of Leadership Studies, and I'm here today with best-selling author Jessica Valenti. Thank you for being with us.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Sex Object is your first memoir.
Yes.
Why did you decide to talk about sexual assault and harassment and objectification through your own experience?
Yeah, it wasn't a deliberate decision at first, to tell you the truth. I was just sort of writing for myself and writing essays. And after about 6 or 7 of them were done, I realized that it was a book that I was writing, which is an unusual turn of events for me. Usually, I write more journalistic, nonfiction. At the end of the day, I think that these issues are so personal to women, and our experience very much depends on who we are, where we live, our class background, our race, our gender identity. And so it's difficult to write about these issues in sort of an all-encompassing way. And so for me to sort of tell my story and have that be a jumping off point felt like the best way to go about it. So Sex Object is very raw and explicit and was painful for me sometimes to read. Sure. And I'm wondering what the experience was like. I mean, I think what was interesting about the writing experience was that it didn't feel as difficult as I thought it would. It was hard for friends and family to read some of this stuff. It was hard for my husband. But I think a lot of us have become numb to sort of the everyday sexisms, the everyday harassment that we face, because you sort of have to, right? How do you sort of go on another day, get on the subway another day, go to work again with a harasser, unless you do sort of compartmentalize. And I think that that's part of the problem, and that's part of what I was trying to get at in the book. So you talk about imposter syndrome, sort of the idea that we don't have a right to be in the spaces that we've worked really hard to gain access to. How do you combat that? Does that ever go away? It hasn't really gone away. I mean, I guess sometimes it depends on the day, right? I think it's really hard. I wrote in the book, and the advice I've always gotten is fake it until you make it. But that's hard, and that's sort of exhausting too, right? It can feel really tiring to sort of emote that constantly. So I don't know what the answer is yet. I'm still, to be honest, I'm still trying to sort it out. But I do think that having a community of people around you, for me, has been really great. Reminding you, right. You're really good at this. How do you think toxic masculinity, which is really at the root of a lot of sexist behavior, can be addressed at a university setting in particular? This is something I'm thinking about a lot right now, especially in the wake of the shootings in Parkland. I think we have to be honest about the fact that we're failing young men and boys in some way, that they don't feel like they can be lonely without hurting someone else, or that they can be masculine without sort of being aggressive or dominant, right? On a college campus, I think it's even tougher. It's the first time away from home for a lot of people. I think that there's a lot of posturing that goes on. But I think that sort of having that conversation happen out in the open is one of the best things that we can do, right? Some colleges have orientations about sexual assault. Why don't we have orientations about masculinity, right? And this is also something that really needs to be taught before college. What has been most surprising to you about the response that you've received to Sex Object? I guess the most surprising thing, but in a good way, has been that I've heard from a lot more men than I usually do when I write a book. I'll always hear from some men, but with this book in particular, I've heard from a lot of men, a lot of younger men, who said, I knew that women face sexism. I knew that harassment and sexual assault and everything existed and were a part of women's lives, but I didn't realize how unrelenting it was. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for having me.